Bartholomew Town, brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, Half Street Group, and Newport Film.
Bartholomew Town.
One of the most interesting components of not just the experimental music scene here in Providence and in Rhode Island as a whole, but I think really just the entire artistic portfolio that we have here as a community is FRINGEPVD. And this is an event that I think it's one of those things that a lot of people have heard of. It's really well marketed, so a lot of people have heard the Fringe Festival name, and they may understand that it's a thing that's happening. I'm sure there's plenty of people that know exactly what it is, and there's plenty of people that don't. Right now, it's in its 12th year. It's an unjuried event produced by the Wilbury Theater Group. This year, there are over 70 shows from around the country, with 2 international shows featuring theater, music, and dance performers. And we are entering into the heart of when this is happening. Josh Short is the artistic director of FRINGEPVD and Wilbury, and joins us this morning on the podcast. Hey, Josh, thanks for the time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Give us the executive summary of what FRINGEPVD actually is.
Sure. FRINGEPVD, the Providence Fringe Festival, is an unjuried, uncensored showcase for all sorts of experimental artwork, including theater, dance, music, magic, puppetry, and beyond. Wow.
So it's really multi-medium, obviously. So obviously it's 12 years. When did you get involved with all of this work?
Well, 12 years ago. So this was, this actually came out of a mentorship program I did at the Rhode Island Foundation. I was paired with Michael Gennaro, was the former executive director at Trinity Rep. And he and I were, just spitballing one day. And I've always been attracted to like the experimental theater scene and sort of like these avant-garde performances that were happening in Olneyville and sort of in parts of the city that weren't necessarily getting seen to a broader audience. And so he and I were talking one day, and, I just said, I feel like there's, the theater is great, but it's like there's all this really, boundary pushing, groundbreaking work that's not really getting seen. It's not getting out there. It needs something like a Fringe Festival that would really showcase it. And he said, well, yeah, you should do that. So I did it, basically just to try to impress him at the beginning. And then it really has just turned into like one of my favorite times of years. A lot of people definitely seen like an opportunity for people to develop new work and bring that to the Fringe Festival. It's a great opportunity for artists from just outside of Rhode Island to come in and share their work and expose them to our audiences here. So it's just it's really just snowballed into this really exciting event. And it all just came out of that one conversation about 12 years ago.
Yeah. It's interesting you say in the latter part of your description there, artists that are from outside of Providence that come to Providence to showcase their work. Providence and Rhode Island as a whole, but certainly the Providence scene, there's a long tradition of experimental work that's happened here. I mean, it goes way back. Well, we can even just look to, let's start in the 1980s. And then as you start to get into the 90s, Fort Thunder, and some of the biggest acts, a lot of people don't realize this, but some of the biggest musical acts that have come, for example, from Providence would absolutely be in that experimental category. People think of Lightning Bolt. They probably also may remember bands like Arab on Radar and Chinese Stars and things like that. But there was a real grassroots, 100% organic and completely internationally known experimental music scene that took place in Providence. You still feel it today. And as a performer and writer myself, and somebody who does, I would categorize myself as an experimental musician for sure, and plays in a lot of lofts and basements and DIY spots. There's a real audience that's what they want here in Rhode Island. It feels unique, at least amongst mid-sized cities around the East, the Northeast, East Coast. What's your experience been like in talking to some of those artists when they come to Rhode Island and they perform?
Well, I mean, the artists that come from outside Rhode Island are just floored when they get here. I mean, to be able to be in a space that's so easy to navigate, to have an audience, we had the opening party for the Fringe Festival last night. We had, over 100 something people here, just like here, excited about the Fringe Festival, just excited to hear the artists pitch their shows, to learn more about the shows. I mean, there's such like a hunger for this kind of work. I mean, Fort Thunder, the work that Xander Morrow and Pippi Zornoza, Dirt Palace, are continuing to carry. I think, Bert Krenka, like some of these people that, in the 80s, 90s that were really like, leading that charge. And then sort of ever, before Thunder closes and it becomes harder to produce work in mills that you can invite audiences to, which is where Wilbury started producing a lot of their work before we got kicked out of the space by the fire department. So it's, there's like that tradition of sort of bootstrap performance art here that when the artists come from out of town, they're thrilled to find it. It's hard. It's sort of a dying breed. I mean, it's sort of harder and harder around the country to find that kind of opportunity. And we're seeing it. I mean, we're seeing like the New York Fringe Festival, was a great opportunity for a lot of artists to develop new work, and a lot of things that were developed there went on to become great successes. And that actually had to close down 2-3 years ago at this point, due to funding issues. And, people are getting priced out of doing this sort of work. So to create an opportunity for these artists to come together here and show that has just been really, really wonderful.
It's so true. People are being priced out. It's a specific commentary that is extremely important. And I think leadership in this state should understand that this is happening nationwide. It's probably actually happening globally. You see pockets in places like Berlin where it's thriving. But beyond, if you compare it to 20 years ago, Brooklyn is a great example. All of these loft spaces, all of these warehouse spaces, all of these DIY venues, off Broadway, off Broadway, in the parks, on the trains. These were spaces that were they were generative spaces for experimental arts, and they've been either eliminated or significantly reduced in what they can provide from, like you mentioned, from a funding standpoint, from a legal standpoint, and from just a supply-demand issue. A lot of those places are now, generally speaking, I hate to say it, but just sort of corporate housing for people who work big-time jobs. But you mentioned Bert Kranke. For anybody who doesn't know who Bert is, he was the founder of AS220. He's an amazing visual artist and somebody who has transformed Providence's artistic landscape. And he and I were speaking one time. I think it was on this podcast. It may have just been a personal conversation, but he gave me this great anecdote of when they were starting AS220, the very first location downtown above, nearby where Providence Performing Arts Center is. And Cianci, then Mayor Buddy Cianci, showed up at the space, and he looked at Bert and said, "I have no idea what you're doing, but I know it's important for the city of Providence, and you have my support." That's the kind of support that allows for an AS220 to grow. Do you sense that we have the ecosystem, the pieces are in place right now to grow the work that you're doing at Fringe, and by and large, just to grow the art scene? Do you think that the recognition is there on a city and statewide basis from leadership?
Well, we're happy. We're thrilled last night. Representative David Morales.
Bartholomew Town.
Are you ready to take the next step in your career? At URI Online, they offer business and leadership-focused programs designed to fit your life. Whether your goal is to advance your career in fields like public administration, supply chain management, or training and development, their online programs provide the flexibility you need with a high-quality education you deserve. Learn more from experienced faculty and collaborate with a network of professionals, all from the comfort of your home or wherever life takes you. Visit uri.edu/online to explore programs and start building your future today. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. Newport Film is celebrating 15 years of outdoor documentary film screenings every Thursday through August 28th. New critically acclaimed documentaries curated from Sundance, South by Southwest, and Tribeca screen at ever-changing, iconic outdoor locations across Newport and Aquidneck Island. A beloved summer tradition. Pack your blanket and lawn chair. Arrive early for free popcorn, live music, and filmmaker conversations. Head to newportfilm.com for all details. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Yeah. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com.
Came and presented us with an award acknowledging the 12 years of the Fringe Festival, and we're grateful. We get some support from the city of Providence and the Providence Tourism Council, and actually Rhode Island Commerce's program. I can't remember the name of the exact grant program, but a grant that we received from them is actually basically funding most of the Fringe Festival this year. I think, what you brought up, Bill, about like, this is part of a global movement. I mean, Fringe Festival started 70 years ago in Scotland, and they're all over Europe, they're all over Canada. People absolutely love them. They understand them and value them as, I might not understand or like the work that I see there, but it's important that these artists have an opportunity to produce this work. I mean, that's how things get made, and the audiences really value them. I think that here, I feel like there's a lot of education that we're doing. We typically do what is the Fringe, artist talk back every year. This year we've added like an artist open mic that's happening at Riff Raff during the festival. We're trying to create opportunities for audiences to just sort of wrap their head around, like, what is the Fringe Festival supposed to be? Am I going to the theater and expecting to see something like My Fair Lady that's like, perfectly polished and produced with sets and costumes and things? Or am I going to go to the theater and I'm going to see a woman dressed up as a giant slice of pizza and, doing a beauty pageant contest? I mean, that's like the sort of Fringe work that's happening in the festival this year. And there's not a place for that to happen. So I think that, we're thrilled with the sort of support and response that we get from our audiences and from the community here. And we are always just looking to grow that. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that there's support coming from Commerce, Rhode Island. I think it's entirely appropriate. Sometimes I get the sense that when people talk about arts and culture and growing it, and they understand that it's an industry for sure, and there are residual impacts. You can look at economic impact studies like the Providence nightlife study that shows nearly $1 billion a year comes into the city of Providence through what you could broadly call nightlife. That's more than just events or arts and things like that. But it's a nice factor. It's a nice number to take a look at when trying to sell the arts, if you will. But then we have things like the arts bonds. And certainly there are recipients of arts bonds that are doing amazing work here in town. But I always make the argument that it needs to be more than just the Philharmonic that feels the impact of these types of things. It needs to work its way down. And down is also maybe not the right way to look at it, but it needs to work its way thoroughly throughout in a holistic way the arts community. And oftentimes it's things like Wilbury that are driving some of the most interesting and important work. The problem is hyper-capitalism. Can you measure the economic impact of somebody dressed up like a slice of pizza doing a beauty pageant? I'm not sure. I'm sure you could. But I think more importantly is, what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world that's boring or one that's interesting? Your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's, sometimes in these arts conversations, there's that argument of, rising tide lifts all boats. And that's a phrase that's usually brought up by somebody in the biggest boat, like it's like if we're in a life raft all the time and other people are cruising in yachts, it's like we're all getting higher, I guess. But, the way to grow this work is to invest in it and to value it and to understand that it's important that it happens. And I think that we are very fortunate that, with the arts, culture, tourism, there are entities here that value and understand that for sure. I think there's always an opportunity to grow that further. I also think that, in terms of like what kind of world you live in, I couldn't agree more with you. I think that, sure, there's a slice of pizza. There's also people, we live in like a very, what's the term? Trying times, or, the world is burning right now. It feels like every day, and for these artists are responding to that, whether that's, by trying to create opportunities for escapism, or by trying to address the issues that are, directly. I mean, shows about immigration, or ICE raids, or the current presidential administration, or like these things, these topics, these are being responded to. And sure, it's like we could, I don't know. We could just produce the same shows over and over again. We could just produce, find whatever great big musical is going to sell the most tickets, and you could just do that. Or you could create opportunities for people to respond to the current moment, and for people to come together for that shared experience, which I think is what makes theater and performing arts so wonderful in the first place. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's that artistic responsibility to be the mirror and shine it right back at society. Some people would say, well, that's a choice, not a responsibility. I make the argument all the time that that's a responsibility. That's the role that the artist plays in society, is observing, I guess, ingesting, digesting, and then reflecting back at society as a whole to say, here's an interpretation through a human lens of what's happening right now. And the more homogenized and the more simplified and the more diluted art becomes, it's kind of like the argument people make about journalism, that it's a crisis of standing up an informed general public. It's the same thing in the arts. If you don't have experimental, boundary pushing, unjuried, uncensored, ambitious art, I don't like that world. That's for sure. That makes me think about the going and living on a sea pod somewhere, and starting my own country.
Yeah, and you remind me, art is a mirror to society, but as German director Bertolt Brecht said, not a mirror to society, but a hammer with which to shape it, which I feel like is where art is the most powerful. It's like, I think a lot of the artists and the incredible volunteers we have, like, I get dozens of volunteers that support this festival because they believe in it, and they believe in this work that's happening. And these people come to this with such optimism, with just such a belief that it's like the work that we support, the work that happens as part of the Fringe Festival and in experimental performing arts is important, and that it's actually that it does make a difference. And I think that creating opportunities for that optimism to flourish is something that feels very important right now.
What's the best way for people to find out about the lineup of events and how they can get tickets or other information?
The best way is to visit the Fringe website. So FRINGEPVD.org, you'll find the schedule for the whole 2-week festival. You'll be able to get tickets, and you can read about all of the 70-something shows that are in the festival this year. And you can also visit the WilburyGroup.org to learn more about the Wilbury Group and the work that we do here year-round.
It's thankless work. It's incredibly important, and it makes our ecosystem, not only in an artistic sense, but in a general sense, so much better. It makes it so much more enriched. And the mirror, the hammer, whatever you choose, it's there for you. And I would encourage the general public as well. I think a lot of people are surprised. They hear this type of thing, and, it's like, I think about like trying to convince my mom when I was 14 or 15 to like it's okay for me to go to AS220 or Fort Thunder or whatever it is, because, it's not people hear experimental, and I'm talking about people right now that have that don't have a lot of experience in going to shows or going to anything other than maybe like the showcase cinemas and maybe, theater by the sea once in a while. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. That's great.
No. Yeah.
But this is you are welcome here. This is not just for the sliver of society that kind of does this all the time. From my impression, this is like a safe, welcoming, open environment for anybody. Even if you've never done anything like this before, get out there. There's never been a better time to get into an environment like this, and I think it'll change your life for the better.
Thanks, Bill. I couldn't agree more. And accessibility is such a huge tenet of this festival. We partnered with the Ramp for their Accessibility is Beautiful Festival. So we'll be shutting down Sims Avenue for our totally free Family Fringe Day on Saturday, July 26th. And Ramp will be there holding the Accessibility is Beautiful Festival inside the Steel Yard. And so, I mean, it's going to be a really wonderful celebration of accessibility. We're excited for that as well.
Josh Short, Wilbury and Fringe, keeping it real in Providence, keeping Providence weird, keeping Providence exciting. And I think the big thing is, It's a similar scenario that they get in Newport with Folk and Jazz Festival, which is that you get international artists that come to Rhode Island and say, wow, this isn't only a cool stop or a cool experience. This is one of the most precious landscapes in the world musically right now. That's what happens in Newport coming up in a couple of weeks. That's what happens in a space like Fringe PVD. And more than any other investments that we can make, I think in terms of cultural or anything like that, nothing sells Rhode Island more than a strong, creative, artistic class. And really appreciate your work.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Bartholomew Town is a truly independent news organization, accredited by Lion, the leading consortium of independent news providers in the country. And we certainly thank our sponsors, Newport Film, the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, Half Street Group, and many others who have helped sustain our journalism. And we also thank our listeners who have supported us at patreon.com/BartholomewTown, or you can click the little heart wherever you're listening right now. For as little as $3 per month, you too can help sustain independent journalism in Rhode Island.